Okay, it is 6 p.m. Today is March 12th, 2026, and I will call this Alameda County Water District Board meeting to order. We will start with item number 1, which is roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Here.
Huang, here. Gunther,
Here.
Sethy.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
And Akbari.
Here. And I believe Director Sethy has some comments to make about his remote participation.
Yes, I have two remarks. I have a remark first. I was on our website an hour ago to look at the agenda and presentation materials. I could not access them. The website appears to be under some kind of maintenance. And when I went to our agenda and presentation materials, it just had a continuing circle. So that might be something that somebody might want to look into. Okay, as far as my attendance at the meeting, I am participating in this meeting by teleconference as a reasonable accommodation for a temporary disability that prevents me from attending the meeting in person pursuant to the SB 707 Disability Accommodation Carve-Out Government Code Section 54953C. I'm the only person in my home office here. There's no one over or under the age of 18 in the room with me, and I will be participating by both video and audio at all times. And hopefully this is the last meeting that I'm attending in this way. I hope to resume coming to meetings next week in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethy, and we wish you a speedy recovery.
And President Akbari, if I might, I just to kind of follow up on the issue of the website situation. It is up currently. I was able to download the packet just now. So there may have been some short-term issue that occurred earlier today. I don't think I was aware of it if it did, but sorry you had some difficulty, Director Sethy.
Okay, I can see the agenda.
But just to reassure the public, the website is available currently, as is the current board packet.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to item number 2, salute to the flag, and I'll look to Director Huang to lead us, please.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now turn it to our general manager to make some housekeeping remarks.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. Just a quick note. Just wanted to welcome the public's participation in this board meeting. My name is Ed Stevenson. I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Akbari, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We'll move on to item number 3, public comments. I'll start with members of the public who are in our boardroom. If you wish to make a comment, you can approach the speaker's podium now.
So, went to a meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission of Alameda County, and what I learned there is how politically motivated the capital projects and the cost allocation are in the water industry. Now, you'd think that they wouldn't care about the water industry, but it says here that they had their consultant there give talk for a long time, and he visited with like 10 or 20 of water agencies around Alameda County, talked to each one, and he went back to them with a message that was basically he was asking people, you want to do some potable reuse? And everybody told him, no, get lost. That's not in line with our mission statement, what we're supposed to be delivering for our customers at this time. And everybody told him that, I'm sure. And so he came back, he kind of told them that in very polite words. And then they went ahead and voted to put it on the meeting agenda for the Special Districts Association. Of course, the Special Districts Association, interestingly enough, they don't hold a lot of public meetings. They're a private club. And if you ask them, call them up and ask them, hey, can I go to your next meeting? They say no. But maybe you're the special district, you can go, but nobody else can. So yeah, they want to have a meeting in 6 months or a year, whenever, and they want to talk about an action plan for doing potable reuse. And the ironic thing here is they sat around, oh, we need to educate the public more. You know, if we educated them and explained to them what potable reuse is, whatever. And there's two problems with that. For one thing, the mayor of Pleasanton is on their commission. And guess which city is one of the few cities in America that formally voted in 2021 to oppose potable reuse? I don't think he was there yet, but so they're on record as opposing potable reuse. He was polite enough not to mention that to them, and that's their own political problem. But the problem for the rest of us who pay for these bills is that this is one of the highest cost sources of water, as one of the highest costs around. And, you know, we're already, you know, it's, you know, if we want to, and the product quality has higher levels of wastewater-derived contaminants than desal does. This includes, I would call them out, trace organic micropollutants, pharmaceuticals, certain forms of PFAS, total organic carbon, nitrates and nitrites, disinfection byproduct precursors, and viral and bacterial fragment markers. They're not really viruses, they're not really, but they are fragment markers of the microbial things in there. So all these things they're inherent in the potable reuse, but the main thing that's inherent is the cost. And, you know, for these people to come and just say, hey, you guys, go do some, luckily it seems to be very political. So maybe the real plan is just to keep talking about it for until we're all dead, and then it won't be our problem anymore. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Abreu. Any other members of the public in person? Otherwise, I'll look online. If any members of the public online wish to make a comment, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app now. I'm seeing no hands.
No hands.
Okay. We will move on to item number 4, consent calendar. Are there any motions to add or remove any items from the consent calendar?
Just a quick note, President Akbari and members of the board, staff proposes not to take 5.2 on the consent calendar. We'd like to make a quick correction there.
Okay, noted.
I'll make the motion.
President Akbari?
Yes.
I would like to remove 5.1. I have some questions, please.
Okay, got it.
All right, then I will make the motion to add item 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5 to the consent calendar, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther, Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
I will make the motion to adopt consent calendar as modified.
I'll second.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we will move to item 5.1, resolution of the Board of Directors of ACWD nominating John Weed to the California Water Insurance Fund Board Association and Aqua JPIA Captive Insurance Company. And I'll turn it to Mr. Stevenson.
Sure, and staff would be happy to read the staff report, or if there's just a particular question, we'd be happy to address that too.
I have some questions for Director Weed.
Yes.
What is the association between the JPIA and the California Water Insurance Fund? And who are the directors
Well-
on each of the boards? How are they separated?
Okay. I believe the C is captive. What they acquired was an insurance company that is solely, where they pay their premiums to a company which is owned by an associate of the JPIA under a separate directorship. There are only two states in the country that allow that, Vermont and Utah. So the captive water investment or insurance fund is located in Utah, where they have an attorney in Utah, and once a year they have a meeting there, Park City. They have now over $200 million in a fund that they have now that is under the control of the JPIA or influenced by the JPIA, where most of the board members are board members of the JPIA. Now they have two members that are at large and not directors of the JPIA. They can be on this separate entity. It began with the California Counties Association creating a captive insurance and pocketing and pointing out that they had collected several $100 million that would otherwise have gone into the coffers of the insurance company. So it's a mechanism for capturing insurance payments for that you can then still stay insured, but be able to take advantage of the retained premiums.
Is this
If that helps.
California Water Insurance Fund Board the same members as the Aqua JPIA board?
There are two are independent of the JPIA. Two of the members, but they're elected by the JPIA group. They're not board members.
And who are those people?
Brett Hasty had been on, got back in through the CWIF. And then when he was elected to the JPIA board, he dropped his CWIF membership because there were already other incumbents, shuffling the personalities within JPIA's board.
I'm sorry to press the issue here, but who actually makes the investments on behalf of the JPIA? Is it the Aqua JPIA, or are they giving direction to this California Water Insurance Board?
Oh, I think the terminology is it's a captive insurance authority. So this is the JPIA captive board, CWIF, of my understanding. It's not a California-wide. This is solely limited to the water industry and members of Aqua and Aqua JPIA. Not all members of Aqua are members of the JPIA.
Are you a member of the JPIA board?
I am one of 400 board members at the board level. There's an executive board, which I've tried to get on, which I am not on, have not been. I serve on the Risk Management Committee, which is one of several committees that JPIA has. But the confusion of creating a captive insurance authority created a new body, which is interrelated and interconnected at the board level with the JPIA executive board.
How many members are there on the California Water Insurance Board?
I think they're all in this case, all JPIA members, and I believe there are about 6, but I'm not positive.
And so we're nominating you to be one of those 6 people?
Yes, and one of the open seat members, one of the 2 open seat members on that board. And there may well be incumbents running for re-election on that. So it's just going to be quite a challenge.
When will we find out the results?
I don't know, but hopefully by the May Aqua meeting of JPIA and Aqua, in early May in Sacramento.
Okay, that satisfies the inquiry that I had here, and I wish you good luck on being elected.
It's a It has its own political cliques.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethy. Any other questions or comments from members of the board on this item? Any questions or comments from members of the public in person or online on item 5.1? If not, we can move to a vote. Oh, sorry, a motion. My fault. Sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye,
and Akbari.
Aye. Congratulations, Director Weed.
Overwhelmed.
With that, we'll move on to item 5.2, authorization of professional services agreement for as-needed special inspection and materials testing services in support of various district capital improvement projects 2026. And I believe staff had some clarifications to make on this item.
Correct. Thanks very much, President Akbari. Yeah, staff recommended not including this on the consent calendar because we've got a minor correction to make in the recommendation itself. So I'd like to toss it over to our Director of Engineering and Technology, Mr. Awoke.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members, community members, and staff. As Mr. Stevenson mentioned, staff has identified changes we need to make to the recommendation to item 5.2 in order to correct the base term and total maximum term of the agreement. So we ask the board to consider a modified version of the recommendation as follows. Recommendation by motion 1, authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Kleinfelder for a base term of approximately 15 months for an amount not to exceed $222,500. And 2, authorize the general manager to extend up to 3 one-year optional terms if the services are deemed satisfactory to the district for a potential total contract term of approximately 4 years and 3 months and a total not to exceed amount of $555,882, which includes an allowance of $12,822.45 for escalation for as-needed special inspection and materials testing services in support of various district capital improvement program projects. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt staff recommendation, the modified staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
aye.
and Akbari.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, we will move on to item 5.6, resolution adopting a revised management confidential professional or MCP employees compensation schedule and handbook. And I'll turn it back to Mr. Stevenson.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. Staff is very pleased to bring this item to the board this evening. It signals the near the end of a very long and active journey. And so to get us started, I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance and Administration, Mr. Wunderlich.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. The purpose of the Management Confidential Professional Employees Compensation Schedule Handbook, or MCP Handbook, is to establish the approved wage structure and define the terms and conditions of employment for MCP staff. The MCP Handbook was last comprehensively updated in April 2025, following a series of meetings with the committee representing MCP employees. The enhancements to the MCP handbook at that time considered MCP feedback and were designed to maintain the district's competitive standing in the employment market, facilitate the recruitment and retention of qualified personnel, and align with strategic plan goals. The district concluded bargaining with its represented employee groups after those updates to the MCP handbook were implemented last April. Updates to the MCP handbook are now appropriate to provide equity with the results of bargaining with represented employee groups. Approval of this item is consistent with Strategic Plan Goal 3, maintain the district's financial stability and promote transparency, and Strategic Plan Goal 4, improve workforce health and safety, enhance recruitment, maintain retention, and deepen employee engagement. And so the recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution approving a revised management confidential professional employees compensation schedule handbook. And just to super quickly refresh some of the differences between what was approved for MCP staff last April, between what was approved for the represented groups is recognition of Juneteenth as a district holiday was a difference. So we have some updates to bring alignment there. And then the final bargaining with represented employees included an extra 0.5% cost of living increase in 2026 and an extra 0.25% in 2027. And so those adjustments are included here to align MCP with those results. And then the last primary adjustment is for health benefits. For MCP, the benefit was to fund the cost of coverage up to the Kaiser rate. And then if an employee is on a more expensive plan than Kaiser, the district would provide a supplemental benefit equal to 25% of that cost difference above Kaiser. What was bargained with the represented groups was a 35% benefit rather than 25%. So again, this would bring parity with the MCP groups on those key wage and benefit items. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public online or in person? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion from the board.
I'll so move the item.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Director Reed.
Aye, I'm sorry.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Great. We will move on to item 5.7, resolution approving updated fiscal year 2025-2026 consolidated salary schedule and career service pay salary schedule. I'll turn it back to Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, thank you, President Akbari. And likewise, I will send it right along to our Director of Finance and Administration, Mr. Wunderlich.
All right, well, I'll jump right into it. The Board of Directors is required to adopt a resolution approving the updated fiscal year 25-26 consolidated salary schedule, which establishes the base compensation for all district job classifications and the career service pay salary schedule for all classifications eligible for career service pay, including Operators Association members. In compliance with applicable public retirement reporting requirements, the 25-26 consolidated salary schedule must be approved and adopted by the district's governing board in accordance with public meeting laws. And specifically, this is to make sure any district employees get full credit for their compensation from CalPERS should they retire in the next year. Okay, in addition, because the consolidated salary schedule includes the salary ranges for the general manager and department directors, an oral report summarizing this recommendation must be presented prior to board action. The attached fiscal year 25-26 consolidated salary schedule and career service pay salary schedule reflect the terms of the recently concluded labor negotiations with the OA finalized in February 2026. Under the negotiated agreement, OA represented employees will receive an immediate 5% market adjustment, followed by a 3% cost of living adjustment, resulting in a compounded increase of 8.15%. These adjustments are incorporated into the updated salary schedules referenced herein. There are no changes to other job classes reflected in these schedules. Approval of the fiscal year 25-26 consolidated salary schedule and career service pay salary schedule is consistent with strategic plan goal 3, maintain the district's financial stability and promote transparency, and strategic plan goal 4, improve workforce health and safety, enhance recruitment, maintain retention, and deepen employee engagement. The recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution approving the updated fiscal year 2025-26 consolidated salary schedule and career service pay salary schedule as described in this report. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wunderlich. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Director Sethy.
I'll defer to other board members first if they're.
I don't believe there's any questions or comments in the room here.
Okay, my questions are directed to Mr. Wunderlich. I took a CSDA class last month, in fact, last week, uh, uh, which was the CalPERS 2025 legal update on all of the requirements that government agencies need to meet. And so I would like to ask, are we in compliance with all of the CalPERS requirements? And number two, when was the last time we went through an audit with CalPERS? And number three, have we had any citations of non-compliance by CalPERS?
So the answer to the first question is yes, certainly to the best of my knowledge. We're doing everything we can to be compliant with their rules. We also had legal counsel thoroughly review this and related items to make sure we're fully compliant with all the CalPERS rules. So I think we're good there. In terms of a comprehensive audit from CalPERS, I don't know if the district has ever had that occur. If it has, it was before my start at the district in February of 2017. What does happen from time to time is employees may directly approach CalPERS with questions about whether certain things should be eligible for reportable compensation. During my time at the district, there was one such item that was brought up pertaining to the uniform allowance and whether the value of that should count towards pensions. And so I think I'm getting into question three. We did work through a process with CalPERS and legal counsel and reached a settlement with CalPERS about how that would be treated, including retroactive reporting and reporting on a go-forward basis, and that was resolved. And so I don't know that I would describe that as like a citation or finding from CalPERS. It was more what happened is a recently retired employee sent to CalPERS and said, I think my pension should be a little higher because of this benefit I received. And that employee actually had a number of things they sent to CalPERS, and CalPERS determined that that one particular item warranted more consideration. We were never formally cited, but we did go through, kind of a negotiated settlement process with CalPERS. And so now the value of those benefits, which for a typical employee is I think less than $10 per pay period. So it's not a significant item. But we did go through a process with CalPERS to reach a resolution, and we're in full compliance with that settlement agreement.
Yeah, I learned this for the first time last week and was reflecting on our negotiations with our different employee groups that simple things like boots and uniforms and educational benefits, all these things, they're kind of in a gray zone where you don't know whether it's really a benefit that employees deserve toward their retirement or not. To me, it was a little confusing, and the rules are not very clear. So thank you for clarifying that. The things with CalPERS are very complicated, and a lot of it, even I learned, was not even written down. It's their judgment call.
There definitely can be interpretation by CalPERS in terms of how the public employee retirement law is applied. And to make things even more complicated, this uniform allowance example I gave counts as income toward the pension for classic employees, but not for PEPRA employees, right? So even that can make distinctions in these things. And so we do our best to make sure we're always compliant. And actually, one of the things we worked with legal counsel on in the current updates to our MOUs and MCP compensation schedule is to be a little more explicit with some of these things in those documents about whether they were reportable to CalPERS as pensionable income. And so if you've really gotten into the weeds of some of those items that have come, you'll have noticed some edits related to that. So it is something where we're trying to improve the transparency with everyone about what we consider as pensionable or not.
Well, I think it's important, not only for our employees, our board, and that represents the public and um, the public at large, to recognize that our water district is very good at being in compliance with these very detailed CalPERS rules on retirement benefits and everything. And I thank you and your staff for being right on top of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethy. If no other questions from board, then I'll look to members of the public. Any questions or comments from members of the public? I see one hand up on Zoom.
Mr. Nishimura.
Great, Mr. Nishimura, you may speak now.
Thank you. Members of the board, I'm not going to comment on the specific numerical figures reached during the concluded negotiations. That's water under the bridge, no pun intended. I'm sure all of you are aware of the current political buzzword, affordability. Water is an essential service up to a certain amount. It's not discretionary. When spending on government and essential services increase at a rate faster than wage growth, it exacerbates the affordability crisis. Having observed many of your workshops, the cost of labor is a significant portion of your expenses. It is important to remember the need to keep affordability in mind when looking at choices which increase costs to the district. Thank you.
President
Thank you for your
Akbari,
comment.
President Akbari,
Yes, Director Sethy.
I would ask that the staff provide Mr. Nishimura with the study that was done by Bosca this past year on affordability. And the fact is, for all of the Bay Area water districts, wage growth has exceeded the increases in water rates substantially. And so water has actually become less expensive as a proportion of the average income in the Bay Area going back many years now.
I think staff has taken that note down.
Yeah, unless there's any objection, certainly happy to do that.
No objection.
In fact, it was determined by Bosca when I served that affordability is not an issue among any of the Bosca members of the 26 members of which ACWD is one. Based on criteria as a percentage of total income.
I think I'll just chime in there. I would say that affordability is certainly a concern for many of our ratepayers. That's why we've implemented our rate assistance program. That's why we've just instituted our crisis assistance program. And so we do want to be cognizant of affordability being a key concern within our community. It might be stratified, it might be kind of hitting some people harder than others. But I certainly want to be cognizant that even within our district, which is a fairly affluent district, affordability is still a very, very key concern.
And in agreement, I've beat this drum all too often. We can address the issues with billing mechanisms and rate structure.
So I do want to get back to the item at hand. I understand the point and I appreciate the comments, but I want to bring us back to item 5.7. Any other questions or comments from board or public on this item? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Moving on to item 6.1, board committee reports. Are there any questions or comments from the board on any board committee reports?
Can you flip over the agenda on the screen to the next page?
Yes.
There we go.
Hearing none. Director Sethy, did you have anything on any of the board committee reports?
No, I have one on the operational reports.
Let me just see if we have any questions or comments from members of the public on any board committee reports. If not, let's move on to item 6.2, operational reports. And Director Sethy, we can start with you.
I'm not sure if Ms. Hydas is in the room, but I would like a report
Yes.
from somebody about the current rainfall report. Where do we stand right now?
Sure, I can give you a quick rainfall report update. So far in fiscal year 2025-26, we've received 15.05 inches of rainfall to date, and that's running, you can see on the graph that's included in the report, it's running close to average-ish, but kind of on the lower end of average if we don't get any more rain this year. So that's where we're at for this year, and we're going to bring a full water supply update to next month's board meeting. So we look forward to sharing more details then too. But I can answer any additional questions on the report specifically if you have some, Director Sethy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Let me look to the rest of the board. Any questions or comments on any operational reports? Hearing none, let me turn to members of the public. Any questions or comments on any of our operational reports? I see a hand up, Mr. Nishimura.
Thank you, President Akbari. As usual, I would like to make a comment on the very last page of your board packet, which happens to be your distribution system hardness. And once again, I noticed that we are trending higher than normal, most likely due to the fact that the SFPUC is still providing us local water, right, that has a higher hardness. I do recognize the district tries to optimize, yet I'm seeing numbers, trending above 150. And I do want to, mention that, there is a direct impact to that. Just in the last few hours, I've had to replace my water heater. And interestingly enough, when the tank had to be drained of its remnant water, there was so much sediment that it had actually plugged the washout valve. So it did create a noticeable impact to the longevity of plumbing. So there is an economic cost to having water that is harder than desired. So again, I commend the district for doing what it can do, but would like to implore the district to do whatever it can to keep the levels down closer to 100 or 120. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. Let me see. Does staff want to just talk a little bit about the hardness?
Yeah, Mr. Stevenson, no relation, can share just, I think, an update in terms of operational status of our facilities and our source waters.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good evening, directors, staff, and members of the public. So I can share that some good news on the hardness report. So as Mr. Nishimura pointed out, we are trending relatively higher, but as of February 23rd, SFPUC returned to the Hetch Hetchy supply. So we will see those hardness levels go down. They're currently down below 30. So when we will really adjust those blend ratios at our blending facility, and you should see the monthly aggregate for March should look vastly different than this one from February. So
thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And Mr. Nishimura, I know this is a topic that you keep a close eye on, so hopefully you'll see some better news in the next board packet.
Yeah, and I don't want to overpromise because we do operate within, sort of the guardrails here, and the map reflects, relatively high hardnesses on the north part of our system, especially relative to the lower hardnesses on the south side of the system. The lower hardnesses on the south side of the system are reflective of conditions really in the Delta, which this time of year, we're going to see softer water there. We are operating within bounds for the blending facility, but it certainly is helpful to have lower hardness water coming from non-local sources with the Hetch Hetchy system or the San Francisco Regional Water System. So that, and just a note, Mr. Nishimura, sorry about the trouble with the water heater. I think it's new. That's a new issue to me. Certainly we do flushing to remove sediment and things like that, but for a large amount of sediment to accumulate like that, we might want to reach out to you, maybe one of our chemists, just to make sure we understand the issue that you had there, so that we can be better prepared to help other customers.
Yeah, if the board doesn't mind, let me quickly clarify. The sediment is basically resultant of what's known as temporary hardness in the water, right? So there's two types of hardness in water: temporary hardness and permanent hardness. And temporary hardness is basically dissolved material that will come out of solution when heated, right? So that's what gives you the scale in the bottom of a kettle or a coffee machine, and that will accumulate on the bottom of a water heater, even if one flushes the water heater on a periodic basis. So that's the chemistry that I'm most interested in, and having the district try to get a handle on, because that's what's the most damaging to expensive plumbing. Thank you.
Got it. That's helpful to me. Appreciate that, Mr. Nishimura.
Great. One final look. Any other questions or comments on operational reports? If not, we can move on to item 6.3, staff presentations, and we'll start with a very exciting update on item 6.3.1, the Niles Cone groundwater conditions and survey report review. And I'll turn it to Mr. Stevenson to kick us off.
And we know that's the reason why you are all here this evening, really was for this item. That's the reason I'm here too, and the reason why we have some extra guests this evening. But for this item, I will turn it right over to Ms. Heides to introduce this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. The Replenishment Assessment Act of Alameda County Water District requires the board to order an engineering survey and report on groundwater conditions, which was ordered by the board on November 13th, 2025. And it's the first step in the process to establish a replenishment assessment for the next fiscal year. While the district monitors groundwater levels and water quality through a number of programs and regulatory requirements, the survey report on groundwater conditions and the groundwater monitoring report are prepared specifically to comply with the reporting requirements outlined in Section 7 of the Replenishment Assessment Act itself. Recommendations in the survey report on groundwater conditions are based on projected activities needed to sustain the groundwater basin in fiscal year 2026-27, with consideration of groundwater levels and quality documented in the 2025 groundwater monitoring report. Tonight, Mike Hallowell, senior engineer, is presenting information on the Niles Cone groundwater conditions and survey report to assist the board in its review of the two reports received by the board on February 12, 2026. Eileen Chen, hydrogeologist and author of the groundwater monitoring report, is also here tonight to assist with answering questions. This is Mike's 35th year authoring the survey report, and Eileen's 22nd year authoring the groundwater monitoring report. And I'd like to thank them both for their incredible dedication to these efforts for many years. I'd also like to acknowledge Michelle Walden, Groundwater Resources Manager, who is here in support of tonight's item as well. And before we begin, I'd like to note that tonight's presentation happens to coincide again quite appropriately with the National Groundwater Awareness Week, celebrated March 8th through 14th this year, which is an annual observance established to highlight the responsible development, management, and use of groundwater, to bring awareness through education and public outreach, and to encourage yearly water well testing and well maintenance. This year, we celebrated this effort with materials posted by the public affairs team on social media and in the Tri-City Voice, and presentations by groundwater resources staff to students at American High School, as well as public affairs doing some hands-on activities in some 5th grade classrooms this year using the awesome aquifer kits. So with that, I'm very pleased to turn it over to Mr. Hallowell to begin the presentation on tonight's item.
Thank you, Ms. Heides. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. With Ms. Chen, author of the Groundwater Monitoring Report, and Ms. Walden, Groundwater Resources Manager. We are pleased to give this presentation and answer questions in the hope that the board and public will find our time up here helpful in preparing for next month's public hearing on replenishment assessment. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. To that end, we'll touch on basin conditions with a focus on supply and the status of brackish water remaining in the basin from historical seawater intrusion, then pivot to finances specific to district operations, programs, and infrastructure that promote the supply and quality of groundwater for the users of the basin. And with that, we'll lay out the rationale behind staff's recommendation for the replenishment assessment rate for next fiscal year, which is, of course, the per acre foot charge for groundwater pumping. Essentially, we'll be hitting the key points of the 2 annual reports that we submitted last month. The survey report, supported by the monitoring report, meets the Replenishment Assessment Act's specifications of a technical report for the board to consider, along with public comment, of course, when the board makes its findings in the resolutions to follow the public hearing. The resolutions are scheduled for the same April board meeting as the public hearing, but should the board find itself needing additional time to consider public comment on the material, the Replenishment Assessment Act would allow up to the first Tuesday in May to complete the hearing and the second Tuesday in May to adopt the resolutions. By the term basin, we mean the Niles Cone groundwater basin, about 107 square miles of jurisdictional area. The Hayward Fault acts as a barrier to lateral groundwater flow, subdividing the basin into 2 subbasins, with the above Hayward Fault to the east and below Hayward Fault to the west. Looking north at the strata in a cutaway view, the Hayward Fault is depicted with this vertical dashed line. To the right or to the east, the above Hayward Fault subbasin features the above Hayward Fault aquifer. And on the opposite side, the below Hayward Fault subbasin features a stack of 4 principal aquifers. By order of depth, the aquifers are the Newark, Centerville, Fremont, and Deep aquifers. The Centerville and Fremont are often referred to as a combined unit known as the Centerville-Fremont aquifer. As indicated in the upper left, the Newark aquifer is hydraulically interconnected with San Francisco Bay. From about 1920 to 1970, seawater did enter our basin through the Newark aquifer, migrated inland, and then once sufficiently inland, it made its way downward to also impact the Centerville, Fremont, and Deep aquifers. Seawater intrusion happened because replenishment of the basin was inadequate given the amount of pumping at the time, causing Newark aquifer groundwater levels to drop below sea level for a prolonged period. By 1962, the level of our 4-bay indicator well, located here, was about 60 feet below sea level, and brackish water with a chloride concentration exceeding 250 milligrams per liter had encroached all the way to the Hayward Fault. The early 1960s marked a turning point as the district gained the means to take a serious corrective action. With effective water supply measures, groundwater levels rebounded with Newark levels crossing back above sea level by 1972, restoring the natural bayward flow direction, reversing seawater intrusion to become saline outflow. So we've gone from this in 1962 to this today. With about 47% of the 1962 brackish area inland of the salt ponds now restored. This metric is good for gauging change over multiple decades, but to verify short-term ongoing cleanup progress, we can chart chloride concentrations in individual monitoring wells, and then calculate chloride trend, as we've done here, as a percentage change per year, and then plot those values at locations at their respective wells. Negative numbers mean improving water quality, and the median value for the Newark wells, monitoring wells, is we calculated about minus 2.2% per year. The Centerville Fremont aquifer does not have an outlet to the bay, so Improvement of water quality there is attributed to pumping our aquifer reclamation program wells, which feed our desalination facility, with fresh water coming down from the Newark aquifer, the restored part of the Newark aquifer, to replenish that extraction. An updated mass of, or estimate of chloride mass in the current brackish area to compare that of 1974 puts us at about 48% toward a cleanup milestone. This milestone is defined hypothetically as the chloride mass that we would have in the current brackish area if we had a uniform concentration there of 250 milligrams per liter. The quantities that you see here do carry substantial uncertainty, so it's good to also consider chloride trends in individual wells, and the median negative 10-year trend value gives us confidence that we are seeing improvement in the Seminole Fremont aquifer overall. The median trend value for the deep aquifer is 0, which is not surprising because there's less pumping there, less flow through of fresh water. ACWD, through its well ordinance program, has overseen the proper destruction of numerous abandoned wells, which were believed to be conduits of seawater getting into the deep aquifer, especially in the more northern salt pond area. For the basin overall, water quality appears to be responding favorably to our operation of the Niles Cone, a critical driver of which is target ranges of water levels at our main indicator wells. With median rainfall over the next 2 calendar years, groundwater levels should be going forward and over the next couple of years are expected to stay in the middle to upper part of the target operating range in both the below Hayward Fault and the above Hayward Fault. This prediction is made with our groundwater model. To do this, the model must continuously track the balance of water entering and leaving the basin. Now, while pumping and Quarry Lakes recharge are knowable stresses that we can input directly into the model, we do need the model to calculate the more complex natural flows, such as saline water outflow. The rate of discharge of groundwater from the Newark aquifer to the bay depends on how high groundwater levels are to the level of the bay, so the model does need to know the level of the bay. The bay is an estuary whose level fluctuates over time. A comment in the January board meeting had expressed concern as to whether tides, especially king tides, how the effects of those tides on the basin, and whether we have sufficient monitoring wells in place at the shoreline to gauge those effects. This is a very interesting topic, which we look forward to bringing before the Water Resources Conservation Board Committee in the very near future. For tonight, we'd like to at least assure you that we don't just input a single level, a bay level in the model for the simulation that we run for the survey report, but instead we input a time series schedule of levels to capture temporal variability. The Newark aquifer extends under the bay and is thought to discharge saline groundwater up through the bay floor. That's one reason why our model grid extends as far out as west as it does. The model simulates Newark aquifer interaction with San Francisco Bay at these blue nodes here. Now, mathematically, the model is very sophisticated, but there's still uncertainty with the calculated outflow because of the uncertainty of the values that we assign to the model to account for the effect of bay mud on the flow. And the same can be said with the model simulation with the salt ponds. But with the gains and losses taken together, the model provides a reliable prediction of the basin balance and hence groundwater levels for whatever future rainfall scenario we want the model to consider. Of course, future rainfall is a moving target, so the actual basin balance for fiscal year 26-27 is bound to prove different than what we see here. However, as a basis for planning next year's replenishment assessment, it does hold up. The projection does hold up. We're looking at a $27 million cost total for the groundwater basin next fiscal year. The recharge operation is reflected in the purple slice of our cost pie. Most of the imported water cost is semi-tropic and state water project fixed contract costs, represented by the dark blue and the lighter blue slices. State water project cost is offset by the state water project override taxes we'll see in the next slide. The other slices include the basin component of district administrative costs, capital projects, and groundwater and watershed protection programs, which guard against a myriad of concerns, such as PFAS, so not just seawater intrusion. Costs for the distribution system are not included in the cost basis for the replenishment assessment. This chart reflects only those expenditures expected to promote the supply and quality of groundwater for the common benefit of its users. On the revenue side, funds allocated to the basin start with replenishment assessment. As we know, the rate for agricultural and city park pumping is set at $8 an acre foot per the Replenishment Assessment Act, but the rest of the private pumping is subject to the variable rate, now at $557 an acre foot. We have identical columns in this chart because staff is not proposing an increase in the replenishment assessment rate for next fiscal year. On to the next row, ACWD by far is the largest, pumps the most groundwater, so we evaluate at the same $557 an acre foot rate, the 18,900 acre feet expected to be pumped into the ACWD distribution system. And by so doing, we ensure fairness to the private pumpers that pay at this rate. Then we have tax revenue along with grants totaling our revenue to $30 million. This positive balance, if realized, would be applied to costs beyond FY 26-27, putting ACWD in a good position to moderate future adjustments in the replenishment assessment rate leading up to the Vallecillos pipeline project here in 2037, the large spike you see there. But we come back to this next year. Other cost bumps could be revealed by new information. The Water Resources Master Plan could identify new necessary actions required to secure supplies for the groundwater basin long term. But the numbers that we have today support a recommendation to keep the replenishment assessment rate flat for another year. Should the board concur with this staff's recommendation, the long-term year-over-year rate of increase would be 3.3% since 1997 and 5.6% since 2007. Before we go to questions, we'd like to thank staff in the finance department, in the water supply and planning division for their guidance, their data, their guidance, and of course our technicians in the field who bring us excellent data so we can update the groundwater monitoring report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hallowell and team as well. Let me first open it up to the board for any questions or comments.
I have a couple questions. This is more curiosity. Love the presentation as always. So on slide 16, I noticed there's an increase instead of decrease near the northern area above the district. Am I reading that wrong? So slide 16 is the chloride concentration trend map. So right by the two green line, the 250 and 500 line, there's a plus 2.6. So can you tell me why is the chloride concentration increasing in just in that area?
Okay, just try to pinpoint the exact location that you're referring to here. Slide 16. Yeah, well, there's variability in the system. It's
Right.
you know, we're with these kinds of systems here like this. Actually, Mary, could you kind of circle where she's talking? Oh, right there. Okay, plus 2.6. All right. It's really hard to really speak for any single well. You know, we are seeing some negative numbers on the other side of
Right.
there. There is a +3. So it's really a little kind of hard to really say for sure.
So I'm wondering, is it a local variability? Is there a certain type of geology, or is it just an artifact that the concentration varies years to year? It's just a curiosity question.
Well, it is a 10-year trend. I think what I would probably do with that is take a look at the what the R squared is on the trend line.
Okay.
That would be a good place to
All right.
start. It's really, looking at this, it's really hard to speak for one particular
Yeah,
location.
no, it's just the way the data is presented.
Right.
It
I mean,
kind of
it's
caught my
heartening that we
attention.
have some negative numbers on the
Right.
other side there, and kind of surrounded by.
Yeah, I
negative
know. I'm
ones.
like, okay.
We can look at that well and see if there's something with
That
that.
was more curiosity.
Sometimes you can put in a well and what'll happen is you start off with where it's low and then it creeps up and it's going to be
Right.
like the well screen equalizing it sometimes too.
Okay. And the next question relates to, is on slide 31. You talk about $1.5 million about in grants. Can you highlight what grants did we get?
It's the brackish water desalination. It's the grant. What is the grant for? It's Ava's project.
Oh, yes, the brackish ground, sorry. let me-
Oh, that's the additional well.
Yes, it's
Okay.
for the new ARP well, basically,
Okay,
the brackish
perfect.
groundwater
All right.
facility. And real quick, Ms. Chen was able to find the chloride level for that well that in particular that was +2.
Mhm.
It's actually 33 is the chloride level, so it might have ticked up a little bit,
I
but it's
see.
below the 250.
So the number is
Yeah.
so small, just
Yes.
the infinitesimal
Little bit.
changes just
Yeah.
makes it
Of the,
Yeah.
of the percentage method. We put the percentages so we can you
Go
can
closer
get
to my.
magnitudes across the geographic area,
Okay.
but when you're hitting like 30 versus other ones, 1,000, then
Right.
it's hard to compare.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. That's it.
Director
Okay.
Gunther? Oh, good. Okay, Director Reed?
Yes, slide 32, please. We show in the mid-2040s a huge spike,
Yes.
and how somehow that's now assigned to the groundwater basin cost and revenue. Please briefly describe what that project is and why it's a groundwater cost.
Okay. The spike that you see out there at the end, right?
Well,
Right, okay.
Yeah, $30+ million.
Understand. That's the Vallecito's pipeline project. So that would be a pipeline to bring water from the South Bay Aqueduct to Alameda Creek. So that's my understanding what the project.
It's put into the groundwater basin cost formula for that pipeline on Vallecito's Creek, which is really outside our district and over along 680.
I'm not really familiar with the particulars of the Vallecito's pipeline project. I don't know
It takes us out of an open channel
right,
conveyance,
that's exactly right.
which
Takes
puts it
us
into a
over there,
pipeline,
right?
which we should also be doing with Alameda Creek.
Oh, I see. All right.
But you beware the environmentalists, they'll run up the cost or find a not issues now, when it'll be imagined. Next, during the 60s, we had a dramatic overdraft, up through the 1960s and 70s. I was working with the Valley Water District in those days, and we were seeing up to 6 inches of subsidence in Alaviso per year. Have we looked at what documented the amount of subsidence that took place in our district and what that did to the shoreline?
There has been studies about the response. I don't know if Michelle, you want to speak to that a little bit better, but as I understand it, there was minimal subsidence in that period.
Yes, I cannot remember what year, but it was early 70s. There was a study that actually captured a part of the Niles Cone, not the entire Niles Cone. And they determined there was no subsidence even when the basin levels had been taken down to that depth. And I want to say it was maybe even less than 1/10 of a foot. But I can definitely send a copy of that report to Ms. Heides, who can then share it to the board.
Now, the USGS has an ongoing study of the bay and looking at subsidence as one of their elements. Are we in touch with are we coordinating or keeping in touch with what the USGS findings are? Although they're primarily north, very little to the south from what I can detect.
Yes, so USGS, the only study that I'm aware of is what they've been doing with East Bay Mud with their Bayside well. I'm sure there's other studies. I am privy to some of them. The other thing is with the enactment of SGMA, or the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I got to remember, not everybody knows all the acronyms. The Department of Water Resources is providing tools as part of implementation of SGMA when it comes to looking at subsidence. And so they're flying regular radar, LIDAR. And so we do monitor that as part of our annual report. And so we can see what's going on with the basin through how we operate it now. And we're not seeing any, it basically, they're zeroing out all the levels in the Niles Cone.
Okay. A major project was recently completed to build up the levees in Santa Clara County, which abuts the south portion of our district and Milpitas, on the Milpitas border. I would encourage us to review that project and the findings behind it, and to what level of remediation was implemented. Just finishing the project this year in that effort. And coordinate with USGS and get them to spend more time as well looking at this. Sea level rise. We currently are at 11 feet with FEMA, but talking about going to 14 feet. Have we taken any measure on what the implications would be to that, to both our shoreline and also the groundwater conditions?
Well, sea level rise is something that is in our planning, so the way we're dealing with it at this time is, I'll just speak about water supply and groundwater for now. The way we're addressing it is that we are putting in, dialing in a higher numbers to account for. So it's right now we're at 0.7. That's our average. That's our trend level. For the 2050, it'll be like 1.14, and if we look at 2070, it'll be a higher value than that. So it does. That's the average. Okay. So it gets dialed in that way, and then we can see what the impacts are on the basin internally, and that's how we would address that or look at that. And what that could do is it would reduce the interval of operation of our basin, which is like a reservoir. So we lose a little bit of delta that way, and so that's one particular facet of it.
This winter we had some flood warnings in Fremont area, particularly in coastal.
Yeah,
it was stated that the experienced sea level during high tide was over 1 foot higher, particularly in Mill Valley where they had coastal flooding.
Right.
It would be interesting to look at that and see what the implications are there. I would note that the CEQA for the Delta Conveyance, the tunnel, calls for a 10.2 foot sea level rise at the Golden Gate. Now, we have 2 websites that will map that for you, showing what down to the parcel level, fairly accurately, what the impact of 10 feet of sea level rise would be to our area. Well, that's the planning criteria for a major project that we're engaged in now. It would be of interest to see how that would impact our district if that were to, in fact, come to being. The one is a NOAA website and the other is Climate Challenge. So it's extraordinary.
Thank you.
And you can measure it by foot as we go through. So, I would note that the tsunami warning we had went to Interstate 880 under the last earthquake, which would have encompassed all of the city of Newark and much of North Fremont. So the doomsday scenario, it'll certainly be well beyond any of our lifetimes, including Mr. Akbari. I think it would be something to take note, see if we can get BCDC, which has in their enabling legislation a requirement to identify the coastline. They have not, it's not done for Fremont. It goes for Alameda County, it goes from the Union City border to Emeryville. And there's a gap And so in the Fremont area, because Fremont would not participate, we may have to assist them in that effort to take a look at what the implications are of subsidence. USGS has also indicated in my conversations at the conferences that there is continuing subsidence in the Bay Area, which, when compounded with the sea level rise, may make our numbers. Finally, I would note that we may have some wells near the shoreline that might be able to tell us what the influence of tidal changes are to the groundwater basin. And to my knowledge, we're not monitoring that.
I think it'll be a good topic for the discussion committee. Yeah, we'll be prepared to look forward to speaking, engaging more on that topic.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Director Weed. No questions from my side, so I'll look to Director Sethy. Any questions or comments, Director Sethy?
Yes, stay on slide 32, please. First, a comment, because this is a very political issue over in the city of Newark, and for other concerned residents around the Bay Area, the development of proposed housing right on the edge of the bay between Stevenson Boulevard and Maury Avenue. I think they call it Area 4 or something. The city of Newark is not doing anything to prepare for sea level rise in that area, and it's already marshland to begin with. I'm very concerned, just as a local citizen, and I don't think it's prudent on the part of Newark to put in that development. I've talked to some of the Newark officials, and they're more concerned about gaining property tax revenue than they are about the future cost of protecting the shoreline there. Just a personal comment. On the issue of subsidence, I'm not sure if I believe the subsidence reports for the Niles Cone Aquifer. And so I would ask the staff to investigate that a bit further than the preliminary studies that were done in the 1960s, because I've read several times, going back years now, that that Santa Clara County as a whole has dropped 10 to 15 feet, more so in the downtown San Jose, city of San Jose area, where it's been dropping about a foot a year going back to 1900. And we have similar aquifers, and so I'm really not that sure if I can trust the numbers that are being cited here in this meeting. I would ask staff to please, if they could, try to come up with some better up-to-date studies. Lastly, on the cost and revenue, and my question is directed to our Director of Engineering and Director of Finance. I thought the Vallecillos Channel pipeline was expected to be done sometime in the 2030s in our CIP. Am I incorrect on that? That it's now in the 2040s?
Yes, Director Sethy, the last approved CIP Showstop project being completed towards the end of 2030, the beginning of 2040, so in that time frame.
Okay, so we're a little bit off on the chart here. And that needs to be pulled in and corrected. Number two, this is for our finance director, Mr. Wonderlich. Is there a way to set up like a sinking fund where we anticipate the cost of the Vallecillos Channel pipeline and we expressly are charging more in the current years to essentially self-fund that pipeline? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
I think as it relates to the replenishment assessment, what we try to do is make sure that long-term, the revenues brought in align with the costs that are going out to support the groundwater basin. So I don't think we would look to have like a short-term spike in what that is, but rather would probably try to smooth that out over many years. And so it may make sense, as we get closer to there, and you can see that's kind of where we've been the last couple of years, to maybe be a little ahead. So in anticipation of that big year in the future. But I'm looking at Ms. Walden. She may have, okay, she's giving me all okay signal. So, but yeah, we certainly don't want to have big fluctuations from year to year. We'd want to smooth that out based on long-term costs and revenues aligning.
Is there a way to set up a separate sinking fund that's identifiable where we know how much money is in that fund for this future
Yes.
project?
So traditionally, we don't set up a specific separate fund, but I know the finance team working with Mr. Hollowell and groundwater resources staff, they track the revenues and expenses from year to year, so they know how much is under and over. And they do have good cost accounting for that. And so I don't know that setting up a distinct fund is necessary. And again, from a financial perspective too, 90% plus of the groundwater goes to support the district. So even though you see this big spike, the net impact on the private pumper, they're not paying for a lot of that. Most of that is just still being paid by the district out of our normal revenues.
I see.
Yeah, I could follow up on that briefly.
The questions that I had. Thank you very much. Just correct the slide so we pull in the years when we're actually doing the work.
Okay. Since the Vallecita's pipeline is directly connected to the South Bay Aqueduct, might an argument be made that this should be at least in part covered by the state water tax and made part of the conveyance system for this, which has been developed and owned by the state of California currently?
So I don't believe that Vallecito's channel is built and maintained by the Department of Water Resources. I think that's our facility, right? Is my understanding.
Not yet.
So it's not, we can't say it's an indebtedness for the state water system, right? Because it's for our own infrastructure that allows us to use state water. It's not a part of the state water system. So I don't think we could bring this in under the override tax.
It becomes part of the connection. We have pipes that come all the way through in the SBA on down to Santa Clara
but this isn't a part of the SBA.
Evaluate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's not a part of the SBA though. It's not a part of delivering water to Valley Water. It's a part of us taking water off of the state water system. So if you are to and I'm just going to look at Ms. Hydas to make sure I'm understanding all this right, but to extrapolate, then you could say we use our distribution system to distribute state water to our customers and so on, and you could get to everything.
This is still a supply pipeline, and I would encourage us to look at the recharacterizing the definition of the assets. Since will be a new asset being built, directly connect to the South Bay Aqueduct to deliver water to our district.
We might be getting a little off topic here, this meeting, so maybe we can come back to the survey report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miyake. Any final questions or comment? Yeah, sorry.
Actually, staff has a question just to clarify on kind of looking at the subsidence questions. So when Sigma first got enacted, we actually scoured whatever we could from online trying to find documents because the district didn't have any of its own. And so that's where that number came from. So I just want to make sure, are we trying to look back in the past? Or do we just want to stay where we are and maybe present at committee what we're tracking and evaluating as part of our Sigma efforts?
I was looking at the past when I just spoke right now, and more out of curiosity than anything else.
I think sharing that report
point is
might be
it's
good.
a dynamic situation.
It is.
The sea level rise continues, subsidence may continue. So knowing past is prologue, but it continues.
Okay.
I think the concern moving forward, I want to call you Miss Myers. I'm sorry.
It's
Um,
okay.
Ms. Walden. So, is if we have contemporaneously sea level rise and any identifiable subsidence, that would become a worry. And in the
Understood.
city of Newark, I think it's a real concern, which is under our jurisdiction, especially where they want to set up the new um, transit hub and the housing that they're putting out in really out into the bay, um, which I'm just speaking as one individual. It really concerns me that there's more greed in the system to generate property tax revenue than there is concern about some of these likely future events.
Can I just say we move this topic to committee and let's go back?
Yeah, sounds good. Let me just open it up to members of the public. Any questions or comments on this report?
So on subsidence a few years ago, they had, I think it was a European radar satellites that were running radar. They measured subsidence around the Bay Area. They reported high rates in the San Francisco International Airport, Treasure Island, a few other places. I didn't see anything too spectacular here, but that's where I would look for. I'm not sure I trust the LiDAR. I kind of like the radar method better. Same thing when you're looking for ships through the Persian Gulf, by the way. The GPS reports, those are lies, and somebody was running radar and you could actually see the little ships for real. Anyway, and then on the monitoring the salinity and groundwater levels routinely, I did some research on this and they agreed with this idea of you should be monitoring out there near the bay or near the sea to see the sea level hydraulic pressure coming in. And so I did my own research, just like the Make America Healthy people. I did my own research. I went out there on around New Year's and I stood there at noon, and it was at the precise moment of the high king tides, and I was in Fremont technically, but I was on the edge of the bay, and I could see, and I saw two trickles of water coming over the dike or the levee, and small rivers of water flowing into the salt ponds, and I saw that the bay level was a couple of feet, 2, 3, 18 inches higher than the water level inside the wetland area. It was and it was, you know, the amount of levee that you had. What is it? Overboard, surfboard? What is your Coast Guard?
Freeboard.
Freeboard was like this much dirt. I saw it. I measured it with my own eyes. So if that ever fails, it'll happen, and then you'll have the water level will tend to equalize, and then you'd have more real salt water coming into the wetlands, and all this. So all these things are real concerns. And now that graph. Remember, the graph showed the revenues going up. And what did anybody see that in the last couple of years it's gone flat? That somehow and this is again going back to my original point about the political motivation for cost allocations. So somebody has decided to flatten out the $557 an acre foot for the last couple of years. And then you have to ask, so how much money does it really cost per acre foot to produce all this water that all the groundwater that you're extracting? Well, you do $27 million or $30 million or whatever it is, and then divide by 21,000 acre feet per year, and you come up with $1,300 per acre foot. So if the people who are extracting the water obviously are not paying $1,300, we just heard, therefore they're paying, and if it's the city of Fremont, they're paying nothing. They're paying $8. And if it's somebody else, they're paying 557. And the difference is what? 60% of the cost. Instead of going to water users, everyone likes to like wave their hands around and say, oh yeah, you know, costs are being allocated fairly. Well, the way these water agencies work is they do a political allocation of water costs. The $557 goes to the water users. And the rest of the money, which is 60% of the money or 58%, goes to the property owners who are, and they're not all, and they're supposedly being taxed according to the property values. But I know a lot of properties that are being given strangely high or strangely low tax allocations, depending on how long they own the property, depending on is this property being used as an agricultural property or whatever. There's all kinds of weird. So it's water. Most of the water costs for operating this basin are being paid by property ownership taxes, not by water use fees.
Thank you, Mr. Abreu.
Well, I'll hope to clarify some items after the meeting.
Okay. Great. I don't see any other hands up.
I'd like to correct one thing. I said LIDAR and I meant INSAR. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Walden. Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Hallowell and team for a great presentation. That will conclude item 6.3.1. I'm going to move to take a short break, and we will reconvene in 10 minutes at 7:36. Great. It is 7:38 p.m. and the board is reconvening in open session. We completed item 6.3.1 and we'll move on to item 6.3.2, pension and other post-employment benefits funding policy.
Thank you, President Akbari. And I will say nobody really loves the role of following Mike Hollowell and Michelle Walden. However, we do have important information to share. And to get us started, I'll turn it over once again to Mr. Wunderlich.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. So for this item, I'll just say up front that we remain fully committed to getting full funding by 2032. I just want to make sure there's no confusion. There are no plans to adjust any of our aggressive funding to achieve full funding by then. But we're getting to a point where, especially from the perspective of projecting out long-term multi-generational benefits like the pension and retiree medical benefits, we're getting to a point where we're only 6 years away now from 2032, as hard as that might be to believe for those of us that were here in the room in 2017 when we did the big rate increase to help fund us to get to this point. And it's time to start thinking about what the long-term strategy looks like for funding these benefits, because of course our obligations to fund them will continue long into the future, and we're going to have good years and bad years long into the future, and we could even have a really good or bad year in 2030. And let's say it is a really bad year in 2030. We're not going to fully make that up by 2032, but we'll want to know that we've got a strategy in place that will help us deal with those ups and downs in the future. And so here to present this item is Mr. Calvin Cho, our accounting and treasury manager, and he's the one that really worked to develop this policy within the team, and we'll go ahead and walk us through the highlights.
Good afternoon, directors, staff, and member of the public. For a brief 10-second, I thought the excitement was for the pension and OPEB funding policy. And good to see you, Director Sethy, and hope to see you in person real soon.
Thank you.
Today, we are presenting the draft pension and OPEB funding policy. This policy's framework is built on 3 central pillars, making our funding disciplined, transparent, and sustainable. I want to emphasize that this is currently a draft. The feedback you provide today and following this presentation will be critical in helping staff align the final policy with the board's direction. Our goal is to establish a sustainable framework for the district's long-term financial health. The purpose of this policy is to move the district from a reactive stance to a proactive one. We are focused on discipline by establishing a formal framework for funding obligation to reduce long-term costs. We are enhancing transparency through clear reporting to the board, our employees, and our ratepayers. Most importantly, we are ensuring sustainability and promoting intergenerational equity. This slide outlines our proposed annual cycle. Our process began when we received the CalPERS data in July. That will be the actual aerial evaluation. And we received the OPEB data in February. We then perform a glide path check against our 2032 target and integrate those results into the budget by May. Regarding execution, our current practice is to make payments in July. However, this policy introduced the option to execute additional contribution in late June. This allows us to proactively capture year-end saving and put that money to work before the fiscal year-end closes. To ensure we hit our 100% goal by 2032, we use the dynamic trigger to guide our budget decision. On the red, you'll see that there's a catch-up. So that is when we fall below 5% for pension or 10% for OPEB. Staff must present an acceleration plan. This provides the board with 3 specific options: a one-time infusion from the current budget saving in late June, an increase in the additional contribution in July using next year's budget, or a drawdown of Section 115 asset. The green zone, sustainability, this is where we are now. If CalPERS lowers our required costs due to our past additional contributions, we capture those budget savings and reinvest them. The blue zone, if you are significantly ahead, let's say 95% for the pension and 90% for the OPEB, then the board can elect to de-risk by redirecting the extra payment into Section 115 stabilization trust. Our selling policies are designed to prevent trap assets for pension. We allow for super funding beyond 100% to create a vital buffer against CalPERS volatility. For OPEB, we stop discretionary payment once we hit 100%. As you know, every employee that was hired after 2019 are Tier 4, and what they get will be the PEMCA minimum, which is around $150 per month. So this is the reason that we want to cap it at 100% for OPEB. And for the Section 115 trust, the policy mandates a conservative investment strategy with a target return of at least 1% lower than CalPERS, ensuring our rainy day funds are grown with significantly less risk. For perspective, established benchmark like the California Employers Pension Pre-Funding Trust, that's the Section 115 trust set by the CalPERS. Their rate of return for Strategy 1 is 5.4%, and their Strategy 2 is 4.9%, which is below the 1% of CalPERS of 6.8%. So if you look closely at the stream, that's the budget. And if you look very close, you'll see the $11 million flowing. There's no number there, by the way. So $11 million flowing, and $5 million will be the required contribution, and $6 million will be the additional contribution that we're making. So currently we are making $11 million per year for the pension. So the stream, $11 million is flowing into the lake that you see, and that's our goal of 100% funding goal by 2032. We want this lake to be full, and by managing the volume of the stream throughout additional contributions, we take control of our financial environment. Now we see the complete system, the reservoir. We are in the blue zone. We can use the inflow gate to divert the stream into our local Section 115 reservoir, keeping access under district control. And refilling the lake during the dry season or market downturn, we don't automatically go back to the budget. We open the outflow gate from the reservoir to fill the lake. So this provides the first layer of stability for our ratepayers. We maintain the flexibility to supplement this with year-end saving or increase additional contributions. For pension, we also allow for super funding to provide extra layer of protection. So once the lake is full, we move into the volatility management. The Section 115 reservoir becomes our primary shock absorber. If CalPERS rates spike, drawing from the budget becomes our second option, not the first. We draw from the trust instead to keep the employer contribution stable as a percentage of payroll. Accountability is built into this framework through our annual funding glide paths. This chart shows that our stream is flowing exactly as intended. At the end of fiscal year 23-24, our actual status was 82%, which puts us 2.8% ahead of our target. We are firmly in the sustainability zone, which proves that our disciplined approach to these additional payments is filling the lake even faster. So in summary, this policy provides a disciplined roadmap to 100% funding, all without impacting our water rates. By adopting this policy, the board establishes a governance standard that ensures long-term financial health and protects our ratepayers and retirees. We seek your feedback today and look forward to bringing back this for formal adoption. And thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cho. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a
So,
question.
Mr. Cho, go ahead, Director
Yeah.
Sethy.
Director Sethy, why don't we start with you?
So, as we have talked about in our finance committee meetings, and Director Weed and I are on the same page, I didn't see anything in here about the different investment choices that we have. And at least the two directors I'm talking about right now, myself and Weed, would be interested in seeing when we move to a more conservative investment strategy and what the difference in expected return would be from the shift from a sustainability scenario right now to a more conservative investment path, both for pensions and OPEB.
So for the CalPERS, they offer something called California Employers Pension Pre-Funding Trust. That's the 115 trust for the pension. And their strategy 1 is 5.4%, and their strategy 2 is 4.9%. And we want to use this only for the surplus of the money. And the reason that we want to do that is because when we look at the OPEB return, so currently we have about $60 million in our CRBT, and using the strategy 1, our investment earning has been about $30 million. And when we compare our earning to strategy 3, which is 5.8% instead of 6.4%, the investment return, it goes down to $60 million. So instead of $30 million, the investment return would have been $16 million. So the staff is proposing that we keep our current funding, and then for the additional money that we put it into the Section 115 trust.
So what you're saying is that only that overflow will be invested with the more conservative strategy, but the bulk
Yes.
of our funds will be at that sustainability level. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. So we'll be in the 6.8 for CalPERS. For CalPERS, we don't have a choice, but for OPEB, there's three different strategy. And when we look at the actual result, we have a 14 million, we would have had $14 million less investment earning if we were at strategy 3. Currently, we have 60 million and $30 million is coming from the investment earning using strategy 1.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
I'm concerned that we have the most aggressive investment strategy with CalPERS. But I am pleased to see that we're looking at a 115 trust. 115 trust is not money in a lockbox. The CalPERS is in a lockbox. So to the extent that we can maximize the use of the 115 trust, so if we do have a major emergency or an earthquake, we need funding, or whatever it might be, we could get to it. We're not violating, we're still, so I would encourage us that rather than putting accessory money into another state trust fund, which is a lockbox, that we look at the 115 trust. Was that correct?
Yes, so Section 115 trust, when we set it for the pension, for example, CPPT, we could only use it for CalPERS pension.
Well, the 115 trust, I understand, is money that we can acquire, that we can pull the money out of if needed to.
For pension.
I'm sorry?
For pension only.
For pension only. Now, that's a clarification I had not had earlier. But at least it gives us more flexibility.
Yes, we have an option to go with the lower strategy.
And we have the credit. Well, it's our decision. We don't have to be able to acquire that for other special funds. The next concern I have is that we have a projected line here, but we saw last year that they changed the formula. People were living, they used a longer lifespan and a lower discount rate. So suddenly we went from a fairly high funded ratio to a much lower funded ratio overnight. And that could happen anywhere in the future up to 2032.
So I don't know if you remember the string. Again, if you look closer, you'll see $11 million somewhere. So, $5 million of it is for the required contribution, and $6 million is for the discretionary. And for this year, you're correct. That $5 million has increased to 5.8. However, because we made additional discretionary payment, $5.8 million invoice was lowered to $5.3 million.
Page 10 would, slide 10 would be more informative. Here we are. So we saw the bird. I was on the board in 2003 when we were assured we could increase our pension benefits to 2.5% at age 55 because we were overfunded in OPEB, in CalPERS, and OPEB had yet to appear on the scene. 2008 came along and we went from well over 100% to less than 50% almost overnight.
Yes.
We have an extraordinary responsibility for our employees to make sure that they have a secure pension when they leave here. I refer to what Dublin San Ramon Services District did when they got hit with OPEB. They compromised their credit rating in order to put as much funding as they could to pay off the OPEB and get it fully funded in as quick a time as they could, short a time as possible. We did not do that. We've now have a 2032 plan. I would encourage us to review, look at 115 trust in lieu of putting money into CalPERS trust. And second, look at putting us into a more conservative funding strategy as we go forward so we don't get hit with those huge fluctuations as badly on those huge fluctuations that we encountered in the past that we're still trying to recover from.
Yes, and that's
20
the
years later.
main reason we want to set up the
Right.
Section 115 trust.
So I think the proposal, I think staff hear you, and the proposal here is to dampen that up and down by putting, I'll call excess money. So I think
Yes.
staff's proposal is to, even after we reach the goal, perhaps we still budget for the same aggressive funding or at some amount. And if we hit amount that's in excess of our required CalPERS contribution, that money goes into a 115 trust. In the future, if there's a spike, we could offset by taking money from the 115 trust to pay for that high spike. Just to kind of even out our contribution. Is that what I'm hearing from your
Yes,
presentation?
so Director Reed, your two questions that you had, this policy is to address those. So for example, we don't see it here, but in 2021, that's the number when we were very high, 100%, towards 100%, but 21, 22, it went down to 78.4%.
You do not have a graph of the funded ratios, our history of funded ratios on this.
That is the funded
That's
ratio for
true.
last 3 years, yeah.
It only dropped from 80 to,
So the
79.
blue line is our goal and red is the actual. And if you look at it, our actual as of 23, 24, we're actually up 2.8% than our
okay.
goal.
But is not your proposal to reduce our annual contributions to this program going forward?
So we want to continue contributing about $11 million, but some of them, let's say we reach around 90% of pension, then we want to divert some of those money into Section 115 trust so that it's safer because we are already close to the 100% funding.
Let me encourage you to start making that diversions to 115 trust as early as possible.
Okay.
Director Sethy here. I leave this to the staff to consider. I'm not trying to direct anybody, but it would be my preference at the 100% level of funding, the full lake, before it goes over into the excess reservoir, that 100% be invested with a more conservative strategy than what we're working with right now. So I know you say the reservoir is the more conservative part, but I would take the entire lake and invest it with a more conservative strategy. That's my thought.
So Director Sethy, for the lake, the 100%, that one's determined by CalPERS, and the rate that they gave us is 6.8% for everyone.
What about OPEB?
For OPEB, it would be different, but currently we are in CRBT, which is another Section 115 trust.
And the difference between the programs is the ratio of equities to fixed income, correct?
So for CalPERS, their goal is to move to 70 to 30%, 70% stock and 30% bond. So the reason that they're doing it is to go for that 6.8% return.
CalPERS has been weaving down their corridor and then went below the corridor for a while, the 80, 120. So I would support Director Sethy's request to look at the more conservative investment programs, both CalPERS and OPEB. Because currently we're in the most aggressive.
You're correct that we are currently on the most aggressive for CRBT. But again, the difference will be investment earning of $30 million. Our current balance is $60 million. So 50% came from the investment earning. But if we were at strategy 3, we would have been $47 million, $50 million short.
Well, I favored the current strategy that we're on, going back to I think 2012. But I'm just saying, moving forward, as we get closer to that 100%, my desire would be to move to a more conservative investment strategy. So we don't see that big plunge in our asset value that we saw between 2008 and 2010.
So I think we're going to have some interesting discussion at committee next week because the committee will actually receive a copy of our draft OPEB valuation. And of course, that will be posted on the website tomorrow. I encourage all board members and members of the public to take a look at that. And based on the request from the committee members, we did have the actuary present what the difference in annual contributions would be based on different discount rates. And so that way everybody can see what that difference in annual cost would be. And I don't want to get beyond the scope of what this presentation is supposed to cover, so I'm not going to get into the details of that, other than to say that I think there may be an appropriate time in the future to make the change Director Sethy's talking about in terms of the total lake itself. I don't think we're there yet, but we'll review that in detail with the committee next week because that does align with the detailed report that will be presented. And that had always been our plan as staff to get into those details on the OPEB contributions when we present the valuation. And so I think, let's have that detailed discussion next week in the committee. And then if appropriate, staff could bring back that detailed discussion and difference in contributions, perhaps as part of a budget workshop. And then the board could, within the context of the budget, make a decision about the level of contribution you want to make next fiscal year.
That sounds good. And as I informed Mr. Stevenson earlier today, I expect to be at that meeting in person.
And the irony is we're in an incredibly volatile time in our economy. Yeah, I suspect the estimate by the actuary was on at $70 a barrel oil, and we're now maybe going to $200. That could have a significant impact on financing. Thank you.
So I want to turn to Director Huang, who's been patiently waiting.
I actually, through all the discussion, I think I confirmed what I assume is the staff basically proposing to keep contribution even. And if we have excess, you throw it into the 115 fund, section 115 fund, and we'll pull money out if our contribution spiked higher than our budgeted amount. So it kind of evens out at least the impact to the district. I am fine with that approach. I think that actually makes a lot of sense because it's easier for us to budget. And it also will offset some of the spike if CalPERS decide to change their mind again.
And the CalPERS regulations have a smoothing value. What happened in 2008 and 9, they just extended the smoothing so that it didn't look as bad as it was.
So, yeah, no, I am totally fine and actually support what you're proposing.
Great. Any comments or questions, Director Gunther? I think similar to Director Huang, my questions were answered in the discussion because I was a little bit confused about the Section 115 trust, but I think I understand it much better and very much supportive of the path we're down. So thank you. Let me turn it to members of the public now. Looks like we have members of the public online with their hands up. So Mr. Nishimura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I wasn't going to comment about this, but the board discussion was fascinating. And it sort of kind of makes me think about, just the whole pension system that we have, right? Because what it's unfortunately doing is forcing a board that is supposed to run a water agency. Your expertise is supposed to be procuring and delivering safe, reliable water. And you're now being forced to basically play insurance company, right? You are basically running an actuarial enterprise where you're trying to use the capital markets, or maybe not just the capital markets, but the markets to generate income, to offset your pension liabilities, right? So it's putting you in a area perhaps outside your expertise, which then you have to go and procure that expertise. So that's sort of just a general comment on the quandary that's not necessarily unique to this district, but yes, you guys have gotten lucky, right? I think a lot of people who are heavily invested and overweighted in equities got lucky. And I think that was mentioned is that by being aggressively invested, which was a good thing, everybody made out quite well. I mean, you could have just back in 2021 put all your funds in Nvidia stock and you'd be sitting pretty right now. I do share the concerns that, being overly aggressive can lead to a higher degree of volatility. The comment again, I have not had a chance to read through all the regulations of this fund, this Section 115 fund, but the comment I would make is that if the overall goal is to offset the volatility of CalPERS and the rates that they give you, one should look at the reasons why that volatility would exist in the CalPERS side, and then use your other fund and look for ways to have volatility that is decorrelated from the volatility that is decorrelated from the reasons why the CalPERS fund would be volatile in one direction, right? I mean, that I think is what was stated as the desired outcome of having that second fund. So that's just my 3 cents. I'll just throw that in there along with everybody else. I'm sure that this district will have to employ either through their own internal staff or through external consultants, financial advisors that will give you the degree of confidence that you need to make your investment choices. Thanks.
Mr. Nishimura, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but just to build on what you were saying, there are a lot of people who serve in government boards that have no financial knowledge, no investment credibility of any kind, and yet they're handling tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. So the governor last fall signed a bill into effect where in addition to the ethics exam that we take every 2 years, or ethics course, and sexual harassment, we now have to take a financial literacy test every 2 years, which I fully endorse, because you have a lot of people, and I'm just going to take one example, school boards, where you have a lot of moms and dads that run for the school board because their kids in school and they don't have any financial knowledge, and a lot of the funding is dictated by the state. And so when I have attended school board meetings, I am just in shock at the shallowness of comprehension when it comes to managing their finances. And that's why you see so many school districts, even here in the East Bay, that are laying off lots of teachers and reassigning them. But I completely agree with your comments there. Thank you.
I'll make one positive comment. Moody's is one of the 3 rating agencies, and the only one of the 3 that takes in legacy costs as in their calculations and their awards. We are one of 2 districts in the state of California that have a AAA from Moody's. So as critical as we may sound of our policy and disconcerting, we're doing okay. And as far as the and when I was on the community college board, our philosophy was a belly up principle. We wanted the other districts in the state to go belly up before we did, and we do our planning based on that. So we're in pretty good shape. Thank you.
Thank you for all those comments. I don't see any other members of the public with their hands up, so I think we can conclude this item. But before we do, Mr. Cho, are you seeking any other guidance from the board? I know you were hoping to get some feedback, so I want to make sure you have what you need.
So there's an option to make additional funding in the month of July. The month of June from the budget saving if it's needed. It's going to go through the budget process. We're going to make sure the public and the directors are aware. But that's one of the options that we're proposing.
Okay. And that'll come back to the board for decision in just before June, or when should we expect that to come before the board?
Would that not be the budget workshop?
Yeah, I think that would be in the budget workshop. I think where we're at right now, we're on the trajectory toward 2032. So it would really be more a question for the board if you want to try to speed up that trajectory. But we're not in a position where I think we would need to do extra to meet 2032. But yeah, I think that would just be a part of the budget process. And we'd be looking at the estimated results for the current fiscal year. And if we felt like there was the flexibility within the budget and there was the interest, then we could move forward at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick comment. The 2032 deadline is purely one that we established, not under state guidelines.
Correct. Yes.
As a board directive. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cho. Appreciate the insights. Great. With that, we will move on to item 6.3.3, review of district participation in the California Urban Water Agencies, also called CUA.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And then this is kind of a special item we wanted to share with the board and with the public. ACWD's participation in the California Urban Water Agencies. This is something that we work pretty hard on with other water agencies and with the water industry kind of behind the scenes. And this is not something, these aren't things that the board or the public sees a lot of. We felt it was important to share with the board some of the things that are done. I think the district's participation in this organization returns a lot of value to the district, and it puts us in a good position to contribute to the trajectory of the water industry in California overall. So I would like to turn it over to our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Heides, who can walk us through at a high level what the district's involvement in CUA is and who CUA is.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. I'm pleased to be able to share a little bit of an overview today about the district's participation in the California Urban Water Agencies. And are the slides up? Awesome. Okay. See if I can advance them. So first, a brief overview of what is CUA. So CUA was actually established in 1990. Its full name is the California Urban Water Agencies. It's a nonprofit corporation of the 11 major urban water agencies responsible for serving drinking water to about 2/3 of the state's population. It serves as the collective voice for the largest urban water purveyors in California, provides a technical perspective to promote a common understanding and consensus solutions among the urban water community. And this is just sort of the little blurb about who CUA is, but really, oh wait, hang on. Some of the things that really drive who CUA is and what they do is that they're really built around consensus solutions among the urban water community. So they don't really take on any issues that are not agreed upon by all 11 member agencies. It provides a really unique space for a collective sharing of information between agencies about issues that are really specific to the work that we do in the urban water sector. It allows an opportunity for us to pool our member agency resources, and that's funding and also our expertise. So I'll talk a little bit later about the committee structure used in CUA, and it allows our staff to connect with other subject matter experts throughout the state doing similar work and really collaborating on important statewide topics. CUA does spend a fair amount of time developing technical information on California water issues to help inform policy. And when I say that, what typically CUA does is really try to get out pretty far ahead of issues becoming in the spotlight and get technical work together really as things are starting to become an issue so that there can be some base level of information to inform, issues that are going to ultimately result in, policy or new things being developed. So what they do is they produce a lot of work products such as fact sheets, reports, presentations. They have sets of policy principles on a number of topics that all the agencies agree upon. And they, in particular in recent years, have done a lot more outreach materials on various technical issues as well. The governance and management of KUA itself, it's generally governed by a board of directors of with a representative of each of the member agencies, as well as an alternate director. And the work that gets done on the more technical topics is typically carried out by staff committees that the board members participate in to some extent, and also the staff of the various agencies gets involved as well. KUA is managed by an executive director and along with a staff team. So I don't know, some of you may know Wendy Broley of Brown and Caldwell. She's the current executive director of KUA and works with her incredible staff team to execute the work of KUA and lead the committees. And so with that, I'm going to just share briefly KUA's members. There's the 11 members. You'll see on the right side of this slide a map of the state that shows the urban areas with the agencies centered here in the Bay Area. There's a number of agencies also in Southern California and San Diego. And then the most recent member that has joined actually is the city of Fresno that provides a different perspective from some of the urban Bay Area and Southern California agencies as well, which has been a great addition to the group. So a handful of years ago, KUA went through a strategic planning process and sort of a refresh of its mission and vision statements. And so their mission, as currently stated, is to provide a unified voice for urban water solutions that keep our environment and communities thriving. And their vision is a California where everyone can rely on safe and accessible water. KUA has some stated values as well, and I won't delve into detail on each of these, but this was an interesting process that the board went through to really think through who are we and what values do we really stand for. And being unified is a huge thing for KUA, to really be, consensus driven and have strong partnerships in all the work that they do. Trusted is a huge value for KUA over the many years since 1990, since it's been an organization. Folks have looked to KUA for technical information that is reliable and trusted and respected as being objective on California's urban water issues and what the systems do. Balanced, they do try to provide a very balanced perspective, and that is at the core of many of the things that KUA does as well. And the last value noted here is committed. And this is something, the leadership of KUA and the folks who are involved in this are really dedicated to finding actions to address some of the most complex water challenges. And I can say being in some of these discussions and meetings has been such a privilege. I mean, these are people who are truly committed not only to their agencies, but to seeing positive outcomes for water in California for the urban community and customers. Very dedicated to customer service and a number of the issues that relate directly to our customers as well. So I wanted to share some recent highlights of things that KUA has been working on the last few years. All of KUA's work products that I'm going to mention here can be found on their website. I have a link at the end for anyone that's interested in learning more. But outreach materials, this has been something where the district has really gained a benefit to by participating through KUA. Most recently, KUA has published a series of career ladders. And down at the bottom, you just see little snips of what those career ladders look like. And if you go online, you can download them. And if you go to outreach events where ACWD is participating in a career fair, you will see these one-page sheets that talk about some of the key careers in the water industry. And they're really intended to share with young people and prospective employees, hey, what does a water career look like? And what does progress look like as you move up in your career and in an organization in the water sector? And they're really intended to be informational and, catching the interest of folks to get them interested and into the water industry. So far they've done a career ladder on an operator, an engineer, an analyst, a scientist, and planners. And they have set these up so that all of the agencies can use these career ladders. We can put our own logo on it. We can use it for outreach. So that's been a great tool that we've been taking advantage of in recent times. KUA has also set up a career website where they have links to all of our websites and job links. They've got the career ladders and more information about water jobs as well. So that's been a great new tool in the past year that's brought something to the district. Also in 2025, so the state, you may remember, put out some new requirements related to backflow, cross-connection issues, and outreach that needed to be done by all agencies. So the KUA agencies identified that this was a common issue and banded together to do a work product related to this outreach. So in partnership with KUA, they set up a number of different outreach materials, a bill insert, a pamphlet, website and digital content, and a training presentation, language for the consumer confidence report, and some illustrations that were developed by some of the subject matter experts at the agencies in KUA with the help of the KUA staff and the graphic artists and the folks who could put together those outreach materials, so that rather than each of us having to develop our own, this master copy was developed and then everybody was able to use those materials as well. So that's where the, amplifying the impact has been really helpful. In 2024, KUA also put out a purified water, a sort of one-page sheet that really talks about the need to educate the public about the safety of purified water and the messaging that really needs to happen long ahead of any project being implemented. And this was done in coordination with water reuse. And the target for that one pager really was kind of the state leadership. And we all as agencies are able to do some messaging to some extent in our own areas, but it really needs to be elevated at a state level for people to start talking about the importance of water reuse as a solution, or purified water, and the getting that long-term effort towards public acceptance. So that's something that has gotten the attention of some of the state communications folks, which is great, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And it's also a great example of one of the partnerships that KUA has worked on by partnering with water reuse to put this together. And I should note too, on the partnership front, the cross-connection materials, in addition to KUA putting those together, later folks found out about this effort, and Aqua and Cal Nevada AWWA and the California Water Association partnered with KUA and translated many of the materials to Spanish to make those available. And they're available on the website, and actually anyone can download them and use them. So other major topics that KUA has worked on in recent years to produce issue briefs, including one on making reliable water service affordable to all. And that one really addresses affordability of all the work that needs to be done in the water sector, and the need to keep water rates affordable for customers, despite all the many infrastructure projects and things that need to be done. So that was really intended to educate on that topic. They also did a reliable workforce for reliable infrastructure issue brief as well, really highlighting the variety of water projects that are needed to meet the state's water supply strategy and how that's going to generate a large number of jobs, and really, suggesting additional partnerships related to workforce development, and even with the state workforce development board as a recommendation. And then last one that I've noted here, advancing California's water supply strategy. That one's a couple years older, from 2023, but it really looked to identify the collection of KUA agency projects that were contributing to the state's water supply strategy, and how as the 11 big agencies that are part of KUA, you know, there's a lot of work that's driving what the state needs to be able to do to achieve its goals. And also that issue brief covers some of the barriers to really making some of those things happen. So that's another interesting one to take a peek at, and also one that KUA is thinking about refreshing and kind of do an update and see where things are at. And I should just note that all of the little snips you see on the slide, those are all examples of the various materials that you can find online on the KUA website. And then just a couple other quick recent highlights. One of the very exciting things that in the last few years KUA has taken on is becoming a technical assistance provider for the State Water Board's Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience, or SAFER program. And this is a state program that helps to support small disadvantaged communities to secure safe and accessible drinking water. And in this role, so KUA is actually able to be essentially a facilitator to help through, and there's a grant from the state for doing this work. And so KUA is really able to facilitate making some of these projects happen. So as an example, the first project that came through as a technical assistance request through the program as KUA became a provider was for the California Valley Community Services District that needed some assistance with challenges of spread out infrastructure and groundwater contamination and access to clean water for their community. And the way that this technical assistance provider program is working through KUA is the KUA staff are sort of the administrators of this, and then each agency has an opportunity to volunteer per se and to be sort of a technical advisor on these different projects. So the first project that came up, ACWD was first on the list, and we were able to say, you know, we took a look at it. We were able to say we can help to be a technical advisor on this project. And it also actually allowed Michelle Walden from our groundwater resources team to help with reviewing the work plan and we're reviewing some of the work products, making recommendations on some of the work that they were considering doing from a technical perspective and an outreach perspective to review this community's issues and do some outreach with the community on how best to address the problems. And so that it really not only gives the district a chance to help on this really critical issue for the state and really provide that assistance from large system to small system, but it also allows our staff to get involved with some of these things where they can really make a difference and share their expertise.
Ms. Heides?
And this is part of the KUA really having a major commitment to safe and accessible water for all. And that's what this project stems from. Director Sethy, did you have a question?
Yes. Is this community services district located in Southern California in the city called California?
No, it's and I'm trying to remember, it's Salinas area and inland. Oh, San Luis Obispo and inland from that area.
Oh,
So it's quite a drive from us, but not quite to Southern California.
what's the name of the city?
You know, it might be, it's unincorporated, and Mr. Woke here has been involved with some of these projects as well, I should have mentioned, and overseeing some of the requests that have come through, and so he's familiar with this unincorporated area as well.
The reason
Not a specific
I'm asking is because the city of California has been on the verge of bankruptcy several times, and it is politically mismanaged disaster of the city.
The mailing, I Googled the same question earlier. The city mailing address is in Santa Margarita, California.
Oh, that's actually a very pretty area.
It's that far south.
Yeah, that's actually a very pretty area. There's Santa Margarita Lake there, nearby 101, Highway 101. Yeah, okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, 101
Sure.
would not be, okay, a valley, but that's.
All right. Well, so that's just a brief overview. There's been a number of other technical assistance requests that have come through. A couple other have work plans and work in progress. And I should mention, you know, the CUA staff and team oversees sort of the administration piece, but they've also done essentially an RFP and qualified local, smaller consultants that are actually doing the work on these technical projects. And that's been a big help to be able to find local expertise to get folks connected with these organizations where the technical consultants can actually do the work locally and make a difference nearby and perhaps be a longer term resource. So in addition to the technical assistance provider program, and there are a number of other new projects up and coming in the queue, this has been a really, so far, it's been a positive thing. And the state has also been facilitating some conversations among the various technical assistance providers, including CUA, and thinking about taking a look at the program and how it's going overall and having CUA's input to that as well. So the other area where the CUA does a fair amount of work is information sharing and collaboration with state leaders and with partners. And just a few examples of that, you know, there was the water workforce issue brief that I mentioned, and that's something where it did end up with some discussions with the State Workforce Development Board around workforce issues and potential collaborations. And also on the workforce front, CUA has connected with the CSU Water effort and hosted a webinar for many students with staff members from ACWD and the other CUA agencies that participated to spread the word at the CSU campuses about water careers. That's been a great partnership as well. On the purified water messaging front, again, that was a partnership with Water Reuse, and that has prompted some great conversations with the state, who I think will be, you know, incorporating some of the messaging around using water more than once and trying to get the word out about the safety and the interest in long-term water reuse throughout the state. There's also been discussions around infrastructure and planning challenges with some of the state leadership and the folks who are there leading some of the organizations making this stuff happen. On the drought response front, this is one of the greatest examples, I think, of the power of CUA, because as you probably remember, in the 2 droughts ago, there was a lot of stuff coming out of the state that was just one size fits all, you know, cutbacks for everyone. And there was a lot of concern about that related to agencies that have made investments and things being different in different regions and responses needing to be different in different regions. So when the most recent drought hit, actually, the governor's office reached out to CUA, knowing that they are a trusted resource on what's really happening with the urban agencies, and called many of the general managers, including our own, to the table to talk about what are the real challenges, how should we be dealing with some of these drought issues. So I think that just is a great example of the trusted resource that CUA has become, and the value of the information sharing that can go on through this organization. And so just briefly how CUA works. This is just a little diagram. The board of directors is the 11 members from each agency. Mr. Stevenson is the district's member, and the other agencies, it's mostly made up of general managers, sometimes an AGM who's over water for some of the bigger organizations. And then there's an alternate for each board of director. So I get to serve as Ed's alternate and be involved to the extent that he's kind to bring me and participate in the various activities. And then there's been most recently a strategic planning committee that's working on some new things. That's sort of a temporary committee that's been set up for that purpose. On the left in the green box, you see the CUA executive director and staff. So they're really the ones executing the work and doing the more day-to-day tasks and working on the work products. On the left, on the blue boxes to the side that say TA Advisory Council and TA Selection and Oversight, that's the committee that oversees this program related to the technical assistance state program. And then the technical TA Selection and Oversight Committee reviews the various work requests coming in and makes a recommendation which ones to consider taking on. And Mr. Owook participates in that, and Mr. Stevenson participates in the TA Advisory Council. And then in addition to those sort of specialized committees, there's sort of two groups of committees through KUA, and it's sometimes can change, you know, over the years as different issues come to the forefront, or maybe take a little bit of a rest. But there's working committees that are working on the work products, similar to some of the things that I mentioned. And right now, those working committees are the Affordabilities and Revenues Committee, the Communications Committee, and the DEI Committee, and the Reliability and Resilience Committee. And then the networking committees really serve more as, they don't necessarily always have a work product that they're working on, but they give an opportunity to kind of share information and collaborate on issues that are current. And so those are currently the Water Quality Committee. There are always issues coming up related to water quality that folks are interested in collaborating on. And that committee often gets regular updates from DDW about the latest regulatory things and such. There's an Operations Committee, because again, there's a number of topics always there, including wildfires has been something recently discussed in that committee. And then AI is a more recent committee that's been put together as well for networking and information sharing on that particular topic, which is always something new every time. So that's generally the structure of the KUA committees themselves. How we deal with this here at ACWD is that we have staff that participate in the various committees at KUA them itself. And some of the committees meet monthly if they're working on something regularly, and then some may meet quarterly just for checking in. And so that's where some of the real benefit also comes from KUA, not just the work that they do, but how we interact with KUA as an organization as well. So again, some of the additional benefits that KUA brings that are not necessarily tangible in the form of work products, but just having that existence as a trusted organization on urban water issues provides a great resource for us to be able to lean on. It allows us to really amplify that urban perspective. And the other great thing in recent years is that KUA has really leveraged some additional partnerships where interests are aligned with other organizations, such as with water reuse, Aqua. There's been some discussion and information sharing with CMUA, Cal Nevada, and some of the other industry organizations. And they really do engage in forward-looking state level issues. And that's where having that staff participation in the committees does give our team an opportunity to kind of look beyond the day-to-day and think about some of these state things that are going to impact us, and bring expertise together that helps us do our jobs a little bit better as well. So it allows for great peer knowledge sharing and collaboration, exposure to the statewide issues and statewide perspectives that we don't always get here in our little ACWD bubble day to day. It does allow us to bring our district's perspective to the committees and to the board discussions on a broad range of issues. And then internally, it really allows us to do some cross collaboration on state level issues. So our internal KUA team meets before every board meeting to talk about the things that are happening in the board packet, the issues that are going to be discussed. We welcome input from any of the team members, and then team members report out on what's happening in their committee and any issues that are going to be brought to the full board for discussion as well. So that helps Ed and I keep up to date on a regular basis, which is fantastic. And then I just did want to take a moment to acknowledge ACWD's Team KUA, as we call it. So these are all the folks that have been involved in recent years or have just recently joined Team KUA to participate in some of these different activities. They're participating in committees. They're pulling together data when the agencies are trying to collaborate all of our data together to show a statewide perspective on an issue. And so they're really the ones that do the heavy lifting on this as well. And so what's next for KUA? They have a 2026 strategic planning progress or project that's in process. It's being guided by the Strategic Planning Committee and the Executive Director and her team. They are updating the strategic goals. A board workshop was held at the end of February, and Mr. Stevenson and I had the opportunity to participate in that. They are drafting a 5-year roadmap for the organization, and there's going to be tactics and milestones in there that are being developed for each strategic goal. And then KUA does meet, the board itself meets about every other month. And so they just gathered all that input at this initial workshop, and then we anticipate that that will continue to be developed through June, through the upcoming meetings and discussions. And so some 2026 works in progress include some efforts in water supply reliability. They're looking at updating the past issue brief to get it to current and inform kind of the state of affairs of some of the projects that are happening. Doing more career ladders outreach, working on trust in tap water messaging that we can all use within our organizations and communities, and also doing more on workforce development information exchange as well. So that was a rundown of all things KUA that we could, cram into a little bit of time here at the board meeting. And I'm really happy to answer any more questions you may have. If you would like to learn more about KUA, you can go to their website, which beautifully features our very own Alameda Creek on the very front, because you have an amazing public affairs team that gives us great pictures every time they have work products. We make sure our pictures get in there. And this is currently highlighted on the webpage. You can also visit the career webpage that's there as well and see the fun career ladders that we've developed. And please share them with people that want to learn about the water industry. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have questions and a comment.
Yes, why don't we start with Director Sethy?
First of all, that is really cool to see us on the front cover there. Good work by our team. The first question I'd like to ask is, who represents ACWD on the board and who is the alternate? And how frequently does that change?
So Mr. Stevenson is our board member, and I've been serving as the alternate. And it changes when we have a general manager change. I was what I would say. But although, Ed can always find a new alternative if he prefers. So that's totally up to him.
Okay, all right. And a quick comment, because I saw you have a DEI committee in one of the boxes there. When it comes to the technical assistance assignments and oversight, I would encourage KUA, because you're dealing with a lot of smaller communities that may need assistance out there, that you look to employ veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, tribal businesses, minority-owned businesses. There are a lot of small businesses out there that are hungry for work and can do just as good a job as, the big boys. And that would be one way to help out with money going back into the local communities. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Sethy. And actually, that's a great comment. And that is one of the things that the TA program does do. The consultants who have been qualified, I think many of them are small businesses. And Mr. Stevenson, maybe you remember better than I do, or Mr. Woke, if there were certain things in that program that allowed for smaller businesses or things that were local.
That's right, Ms. Heides. The money for the whole program comes from the state of California, the Department of Financial Assistance, and they also encourage contracting with local contractors, local resources, local consultants, women and minority-owned businesses, and so forth. So that is actually part of the criteria that KUA uses to pre-qualify and rate and resources. Not a requirement, but that is a consideration. Also, the degree to which resources are local. There's a practical facet there too, but but yeah, those are considerations for KUA.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethy. Nothing.
I've got a couple of comments. First of all, ACWD has had some senior leadership positions with KUA over the years, have we not?
Yes, and Mr. Shaver I think took a turn as the president, and I don't know if it's been Ed's turn yet. He's, I think we've had other folks that have.
Yeah, it rotates.
Yeah.
Time and service and so forth. So yeah, but yeah, we have indeed.
Right. Next, I did do a check on California Valley CSD. They have a total of 13 employees, a total payroll of $200,000 a year. A number of those employees are earning $1,200–1,500 a year. They do not list water as one of their services, but they do parks and recreation and road maintenance. So, but I'm glad that under the SAFER program, we're getting involved and making direct contacts. I think their highest paid employee is about $45,000 a year, and they do have a board, elected board. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I'm a big fan of KUA. I think the mission and the vision of KUA is very important. And one comment that I want to highlight, I feel like ACWD really pulls its weight in California. We really lead on a lot of issues. When you look at the membership of KUA, it's like MET, LADWP, SFPUC, Zone 7, some of the larger agencies across the state. And ACWD is right there with them. And I think that's so important for us to advocate for our ratepayers and also just lead on a lot of these issues to create, provide access to water across the state. And I think that's so important that we're leading on that. I regularly send the KUA website, especially for folks that are interested in careers in water. It's KUA and then Baywork that I always turn to, and so I'm really happy to see us participating with them, and I'm glad that we're taking a very active role with KUA. So great presentation. I mean, this opened my eyes on other things that KUA is doing that even I wasn't familiar with. And so I'm glad that we're taking such an active role in that organization. I will look to members of the public if you have any questions or comments on this presentation. I see no hands up on Zoom. So I think that concludes this item. Great. Thank you, Ms. Itis.
Thank you.
So that concludes item 6.3, staff presentations. With that, we'll move on to item 6.4, general managers reports, and I'll turn it back to Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, I'll do this super quick. Item 6.4.1 is upcoming public engagement events. And for that, I'll simply refer to the email that you all received that was provided by Ms. Gonzalez to remind you of all the upcoming events. So please take a look at those. You're welcome to participate in any or all of them. To the extent they're not based upon a capital project that you may have a potential financial conflict of interest in and so forth. Let us know if you'd like to discuss any of that. One of those is our historical mural unveiling and tree planting ceremony, which is coming up on April 23rd. It'll be here at headquarters from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. I highlight that one in particular because, hey, it's at our house. It involves us and our history. It also involves, of course, drought tolerant landscaping and so forth. But I thought I would ping the board and indicate we're interested in understanding whether there's anybody on the board that would like to say a few words during that event. Again, the focus is on our history, and I know we have some folks on our board that are very interested in our history. And so I thought I would put that out to the full board. You don't all have to tell me now, but we would like to hear from you soon. If you would like to say a few words, it would have to be relatively short. We'll have a number of folks that will be sharing some information, including the artist who prepared our mural. So, so please let me know, or you can let me know now.
I'll
I've
raise
already
my
shared
hand
with
right
us.
now, especially since I nominated the artist.
Awesome, Director Sethy.
I figured your hand might go up,
And I'm a little bit of
but
a
anybody is
historian.
welcome.
I'm a little bit of a
Okay.
historian on the district.
Yeah, and so we'll need to work on what that story is and how long it will be.
As I always say, I'll try to keep it short, right?
Yeah.
But I will say this, if you could send out an invitation to our three mayors. I've already brought this up with Mayor Hannon over in Newark when John and I were at a meeting with him up in Oakland, and also with Mayor Salwan. I have not informed the mayor of Union City, but I did share this with those two mayors, and they said they were interested in attending.
That's great. We appreciate all of your outreach. We have sent save the dates to all of the mayors and a number of dignitaries around and some of our partner agencies and so forth, and some local historical groups and societies and figures and historians. So we've got quite a number of save the dates out there. But as we prepare our sort of agenda for the day, I would like to try and squeeze anybody in that would like to say some words.
Send one out to Congressman Swalwell, who might be our next governor.
We may have actually sent a save the date to Swalwell's office in addition to other representatives. Got it. Thank
I will
you.
mention it to him.
I look forward to attending. My wife had scheduled a pilgrimage to the Holy Lands the last 2 weeks of April, and for some reason it's been postponed.
That's great. So you'll be able to come here instead.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Lastly, I just wanted to, if you would indulge me, tonight I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank John Wunderlich for his outstanding service to the district. Tonight is John's last board meeting with ACWD as he will be leaving the district next week. He's been an exceptional leader. He's guided our financial and administrative functions with expertise, integrity, steady judgment, and John's contributions have strengthened our organization in lasting ways, from his cross-departmental collaboration to his full participation as a member of the executive team, and I will greatly miss John. So I just wanted to put it out there. Please join me in recognizing John for his contributions to this organization and wishing him all the best in his upcoming endeavors. That completes my general manager's reports.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We'll move on to item 7, director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests. I'll start with Director Sethy. Anything for item 7?
Nothing, thank you.
Director Huang?
Nothing from me.
Director Gunther? Director Weed, I think you have an
Yes,
item.
I
here as well.
attended the Federal Affairs, I'm a member of the Federal Affairs Committee for Aqua, and attended their Aqua East in Washington, D.C. for 3 days. We were always worried when Dave Reynolds left that there would be maybe a slack, but Aqua's maintained its strength, involvement, and made some very important connections. I was able to, I was on a group that did tour the Capitol. They had not done that in the last couple of years, and actually went to an office in the House Speaker's complex or suites from the Capitol for the first time. So we're moving up a little bit and getting a little more influence. And well represented in the presentations by various members of the administration, which do give a different twist and tone in their talk about trying to review some of the environmental nonsense that was put into legislation over the past several administrations. So good and worthwhile. Next, their AWWA has an annual meeting. They call it ACE. The next one will be ACE 26 on June 21st to 24th in Washington, D.C. I attended the meeting, and when it was in Anaheim, 20,000 attendees. And if you want to talk about water or focusing on an area of water, that is a meeting that I encourage members of our staff to go, and I would like to have endorsement from our board to attend that AWWA meeting. AWWA is not on our list of authorized groups, unfortunately. So leave that for a future meeting.
Sounds like a request for an agenda item.
Yes.
AWWA is definitely included, but only for events and activities in California and maybe Washington, D.C., but I think the ACE 26 is in Denver. Is that right?
No, the Denver is, no, this one will be in Washington, D.C.
D.C. Oh, maybe.
Denver has Water Smart,
Okay.
Smart Water Utilities Conference, which is fully funded for those who wish to attend. I understand we may have a staff member. It's funded by the industry. You have 2.5 days of sales pitches. Room Woke attended this last year, as have other members of our staff. And that's 2.5 days of talking to people from around the country about water, and all expenses are covered: transportation, food, entertainment, lodging.
Okay, great. Well, we will double check our policy. If it's not already on the list, we will bring a item to the board for
And the
consideration.
Water Smart Utility is on our list now, but the time to apply is now.
Yeah, and I have sent notice around to staff.
And I was actually planning on using director comments to just thank Mr. Wunderlich for all of his service to the district. John joined just around the same time that I joined, almost 10 years ago now. And so I've had an opportunity to learn from you, and I just wanted to express my appreciation for all the work that you've done. You leave big shoes to fill here, but I'm confident that you'll do very well in your next role. And I'm sad I'm not going to get to harass you about the Kings anymore, but
You can still harass him. We know where he's going.
yeah, exactly, not too far. But I'm wishing you all the best in your next role, John.
Yeah, really appreciated, Ed's comments. Wasn't expecting anything. I didn't see it on the agenda. But also, President Akbari, appreciate the comments. My first board meeting here, there was a packed room as the board considered a 25% rate increase back on February 9th, 2017. And, it's just been such a privilege to be here and to serve the customers of this community the last 9 years and work with such a wonderful team and board here. And I know I've, learned so much during my time, and look forward to my new opportunity, of course, but I'm sure, it's a small industry. We're still going to see each other around and look forward to those future opportunities.
Thank you, and we'll talk to them.
I'll just say thank you. You brought a lot of new things to the district that makes us definitely a better district, different way to look at things. I will definitely miss you. Thank you for your service. Hopefully I'll run into you in Aqua, but unfortunately running into you in Aqua doesn't equal to having homemade ice cream. I will definitely miss that.
Voice tonight, John, but thank you so much for all you've done for us. And I do appreciate your being here, and I'm going to miss you. Thanks.
Wonderful. I think that rounds out our director's comments here. We'll move to item 8, open session. Item 8.1, appoint an agency designated representative appoint agency designated representatives for labor negotiations between the district and unrepresented management, confidential, and professional employees.
Thank you, President Akbari, and staff recommends appointment of agency designated representatives Jonathan Wunderlich, Amy Reeve, and Ed Stevenson.
Do we have a motion to adopt staff recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Well, second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we'll move to item 9, closed session. Item 9.1, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives were just determined to be John Wunderlich, Amy Reeve, and Ed Stevenson. Unrepresented employees are the management, confidential, and professional MCP employees. And with that, at 9:02 p.m., we'll move into closed session.
I'll join you on the other link.
Okay, it is 9:33 p.m. and the board is reconvening in open session. Director Sethy did participate in closed session, but will not be rejoining us for open session tonight. We've concluded item 9.1 pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives were Ed Stevenson, Amy Reeve, and John Wunderlich, and unrepresented employees were the management, confidential, professional, or MCP employees. No action was taken in closed session. With that, at 9:34, we will adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everyone.